Hi everyone, my name is Debbie Suey, and this is my Characteristics of Autism Spectrum Disorders video for the Autism Authorization Program at Brandman University. Cognitive and neurological characteristics of individuals with ASD would include fine and gross motor impairments, like cutting on a line. Cutting a 1/4 of an inch on a line is typically what I see on IEPs, within a 1/4 of an inch of the line. Students writing extra large. I have one student that every one of his letters, doesn't matter whether they are uppercase or lowercase, they are all the same size across his page. And we're trying to have him use a yellow highlighter to show where the position of the letter should be on the line. Language development is a characteristic of individuals with ASD. Their pragmatics are not there to carry on conversations and be able to speak with other individuals in a typical fashion. There are repetitive behaviors that can become ritualistic to persons with the autism spectrum disorder in the cognitive and neurological area with characteristics. I have a student who has to have the schedule on the board, and if there is a variation in the schedule and she is not told about it ahead of time, she will become very upset about it. We have to let her know beforehand that we're going to have a fire drill, which isn't realistic, but in this case, this is what helps us with the behaviors that she is going to have. Characteristics for cognitive and neurological for individuals with ASD, there's sleep abnormalities. A lot of my kids, well, not a lot, some of my kids come to school tired. I get a message from one of my parents often that states that that her child did not have a good night. Everything leading up to him going to bed was totally fine. Everything is typical. And then during the middle of the night, he wakes up and has where he can't go back to sleep. And he is one of my nonverbal students, and it's hard for them to explain what's going on. Why did they wake up? Behavioral and sensory characteristics would be that they have concrete thinking. They can't see the abstract. When we go outside and there's clouds in the sky, some of my kids can actually be able to see things in clouds like that. And some of my kids on the spectrum, they can't see that that's that's an elephant that's in that cloud, kind of a thing. Another one of my students, when he is given an object that looks like an apple or is an apple, then given a card of an apple that's a picture, and then given a clip art of a black outlined apple on white cardstock, he can't see the apple. It has to be the apple that is a real apple that's right in front of him. I have a student who is sensitive to touch. The other day, I was trying to get his attention while I was doing some work with him, and I touched the top of his hand, and he pulled back like he was burned. And he said, "Oh, you touched me." So some kids are a little bit more sensitive to that. One of my students has anxiety disorder where she has to mainstream for some of her classes, but she's worried that she's going to miss out something from my classroom while she is mainstreaming. So what we've decided to do is hand her a worksheet that's boring and everything and say, well, this is what we're going to be doing in the classroom while you're gone. So you can take that worksheet with you if you want to. And then she'll know that that's supposedly what we're doing. We might not be doing the worksheet, but at least she is able to know that something else is going on that she might not necessarily want to be a part of. So she'll be happy to go to her mainstreaming class. I have one of my kids from several years ago. She was obsessed with Angry Birds, and everything we did had to have Angry Birds on it in order to meet that need that she had for Angry Birds, and that's how we were able to behaviorally get her to, do things that she didn't really want to do. We would say, oh, well, you know what? You can earn, the red bird after you've done this. So, and it would just be on a piece of paper. It's just a picture or a coloring page that had it. It's just something simple, but it meant something to her. Communication and language characteristics. There's one of my students where there is no meaning to letters and words. He'll write them, but he doesn't know what they are. If you have him copy a sentence, he's just copying. He doesn't know what anything means. It's just something that he's doing. He's following the highlighter or following the dots or something like that. They don't have meaning. I mean, he can tell you what the letters are. Couldn't tell you what a lot of say kindergarten words are, but he's a few grades above that. So that's something that a characteristic. I have one of my students, she will shut down if others are called on before them. If I say, oh, so-and-so raised their hand, what is your answer? And they answer, and then it'll come to another question that that student could answer, and I go to her, and she's like, nope, I'm not going to answer. She'll just start singing a song in her, and just ignore everything that's going on. She just totally shuts down and does not attend. We have echolalia, where I could say, hi, Tom, and then he would repeat, hi, Tom. There's not really any meaning in it for him. He's just repeating what he hears. Comprehension. There are some questions where you can ask a student, who was a character in this story? And they can give you that information. But then when it comes to a little bit deeper of comprehension questions, they won't be able to answer those questions. Social characteristics for autism behavior disorder. I have students that like to play away from others. Also, if another student is playing something that they like to play, they get upset because they put ownership on that, whatever they had in their hands. And I try to go back in and say, well, who owns that? Who is that? Is that yours? And then you have to go through the whole thing. Well, that's not yours, so I've said that they can go ahead and use that. So you need to let others use it. Not always understanding social cues. Like if you're, I was going to say that you're wanting to move, wanting to walk away, but a lot of times my kids follow me. They're like, I'm like a mother duck, and then all of my little ones follow after me. But I can give you an example of when I do calendar in the morning. All of my students have jobs, and I'll say, okay, whose turn is it to have to do the calendar? And I'll stand there and I'll wait. Other students, they'll say, oh, it's so and so, and then I'm still standing there because I'm waiting for them to understand that they need to walk up. And so they don't understand the social cues on that. We're working on that, and we always prompt them, okay, when your name is called, this is what needs to happen. You need to take care of that job, so you need to walk up and do this. And sometimes we go ahead and we wait out for a short time to see whether or not they're going to be able to read that social cue. Turn taking. I have one of my students always wants to be first. Doesn't matter, if there's kids younger than him, smaller or anything, he always wants to be first. And then when our line leaders say has gone home, because I teach a first, second, and third grade, my first and second grade goes home first, and then my third grade stays another 45 minutes. That one third grader, he always wants to be the line leader. He's not going to let one of my girls become the line leader just because being nice, or let the other third grader let him come up and let him be the line leader. It's always him, always first, even at doing games. The sleep abnormalities, and that goes back to the also the cognitive and neurological characteristics. I guess I have that one in the wrong spot. So we'll move on to my references page. I loved all of these references, but my favorite one is the EN community. I love how they put the information on there where it is relatable and understandable. It is real world kind of the way that it is written. The other ones can get really technical, and this EN community would be a really great resource for people. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation.